than wave 1. So that means that this can't be wave 2. So that's another problem with this, the advance. Not only is wave 4 not taking enough time in relation to wave 3, wave 2 doesn't take enough time in relation to wave 1. You can also then see that every single move up and down since then has been the exact same amount of time. That's not the way impulsive patterns develop ever. There's no exception to that. So you can't say, oh, this time around it's going to be okay. No, it doesn't work that way. Corrective patterns work this way. Impulsive patterns do not work this way. That's why I know this is a corrective rally. And that means it's counter trend. So that's also why I know that we're still in wave 4. So it all makes sense. It's confirming by its behavior of the rally that we're in wave 4. It's confirming by the time of wave 4 that we're still in wave 4. So I'm going to undo a lot of this stuff. And then we're going to run into some other issues regarding the counter wave 4. So we know that the wave 4 can't be at this low, and we know this can't be a 5-wave move. So we're going to have to move wave 4 forward in time, just like we had wave 3 finish here, and wave 4 did not finish here, 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 here. We had to push it forward in time because it had to take more complexity, more time to alternate with wave 2 and to explain channeling and all those things. We're running into the same issue here, that we need wave 4 to take more time. It has to be more complicated than wave 3. But a lot of people think, well, it keeps making major new highs. Doesn't that bother you? Well, no, it doesn't bother me. Just like this 4th wave didn't bother me either. The behavior of a market and the rules being met are independent of what you personally would like to believe is happening. So if it doesn't follow the rules, the count's not possible, no matter what's happening, no matter what it looks like. The rules come first, behavior comes second. So in this particular case, we know wave 4 can't be here, and obviously it can't be these lows either. So we're still waiting for wave 4 to finish. And we need wave 4 to take at least as much time as wave 3. So only recently have we begun to move into a time horizon in which it's possible that wave 4 could come to an end. But since a correction that's going downward, wave 4 is a down move, has to finish downward, it can't finish upward. So because time runs out doesn't mean, or time has been, the minimum time has been reached, doesn't mean wave 4 all of a sudden just ends. It has to finish with a down move, and that down move's gonna have to be at least comparable to these previous down moves. So let's get into the structure of wave 4. So a lot of people might call this the end of wave C, and if wave 4 is not over, well, then they would have to call this a D wave. And that's correct, but we run into a problem with putting the C wave at this low. In no correction that I think I've ever seen in 35 years does wave C take less time than wave A. This applies to flats, zigzags, triangles, diametrics, terminals, complex patterns, anything you want to list. I don't think I've ever seen it happen. So we should not allow it to happen here. But if you look at wave A, you can see wave A took more time than wave C. Also, if you add the time of A plus B, because A and B are comfortably different from one another, you can see that the C wave is way less than half the time of those two added together. C wave A is only about a third of the entire time of A or B, so B is about twice as big as wave A. So if we add them together divided by 2, you can see that wave C takes way less time than A plus B divided by 2. So it's not adhering to any of those typical rules that you would expect for a C wave to adhere to. So we can't technically end the C wave here. It's actually going to have to be later. And when we get to 6 monthly charts, we're going to actually see it probably ended around here with some missing price action. And so I'll get into that when we get to our monthly charts. But that's why I don't have the C wave finishing here. We're going to have it finish later. And when we do that, it starts to make a little more sense for the rally, because then this move up and this move up and this move up all take about the same amount of time each. They all look very similar. This rally is similar to this one similar to this one. So it starts to look like a double zigzag, which then makes for, a very nice typical kind of corrective rally. So I'm going to measure from this point. A second here. Okay, so it's very common in a complex formation like a double zigzag or double flat with an X wave separating them. It's very common for the advancing phases of the zigzag to be similar, for the X wave to be mild, and for the two zigzags to be similar in time and either equal in price or related by 61%. So in this case, you can see they're equal in time, related by 61%, and the X wave separates those two events. Everything's taken the same amount of time, so it's a perfectly legitimate environment for a corrective rally. So it makes me very comfortable calling this wave D. If this is a D wave, in any pattern in which you have a B and a D wave, you're always going to want to channel those two patterns or those two highs or lows, connect them with a channel. So I'm going to connect these two. We don't know if the D wave is over yet, and based on all the evidence, it's not, but I'm just going to connect them real quick. Let's see. I'm going to change the style just to differentiate it between these so that we know it's something different. So if that's a BD, the only time you can have a D wave involved in the pattern is if you're in a triangle, a diametric, or a symmetrical. In a triangle, you're going to have time differences, you're going to have price differences, but you're going to have 5 segments, and there's going to be some similarity of time between some waves. There'll be alternation between B and D, there'll be overlap between B and D, but you won't have extreme time similarity. If there were extreme time similarity between all these waves, then I would assume we were in a diametric, which means we get an E, F, and a G wave. If there's clear time differences, you would stick with the triangle. So as you can clearly tell, the time of wave D from low to high is vastly different from C or B or A, and that wave B is a lot more time consuming than C. So the vast time differences here suggest, with virtually no doubt, that we're in a triangle longer term, not a diametric and not a symmetrical. And obviously we can't be in a flat because the C wave didn't take more time than the A wave. So the only choice is a triangle. I'm going to copy this line here. This would be the first choice, just to make a parallel. We think that the C wave finished higher here. We'll discuss that when we get to 6 monthly charts, but I'm going to guess it's somewhere right around in there based on my knowledge of 6 monthly charts. So if it ends up looking like this would resemble the behavior and channeling of a neutral triangle. A neutral triangle is a pattern in which the C wave is the longest and the A wave and the E wave are similar. So if I take this here, you can see price-wise they're exactly the same. Time-wise, it's going to extend out. Now, how much time should wave E take, and how do we figure that out? Well, we use the same rules that I mentioned to you before. Whenever you have patterns near each other or connected to each other that are vastly different in price, time, or complexity, you can add them together and divide it by 2 to project the next one. So in this case, all we need to do is measure the entire time of wave D, which we don't know for sure is finished, but it's got to be close. So we measure the time of wave D, and we can also deal with the complexity here in a minute. If we measure the time of wave D and C, add them together, and divide that by 2. I'm going to actually do it like this. That gets us to here. Okay, so this would be half of C plus D, and that is the best approximation, and it should be extremely close to what actually happens, the best approximation for the time of wave E. Now the complexity of wave E would be this wave plus these 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. So a total of 8 divided by 2, so 3 to 5 monowaves. Since wave A is a single wave and so is wave C, I would assume it's going to only be 3 because you don't want wave E to be 5 times more complicated than A or C. So I would look for a 3-legged kind of pattern. If you want me to draw it in here, I could give you my best guess. I have that bounce to the previous low here. So, and we want it to break the channel just because that's what's going to make it basically the same length as wave A. And it would be very common for there to be some kind of channeling that occurs along here to just scare people out. There'll also be the longer term channel, which some people, very few people will be watching it, but some people will be watching it, and it's going to break that line almost for sure. Okay, so we go back. My chart has moved here. Okay. Okay, so this is a good long-term approximation of the time of wave E, the price of wave E, based on the current evidence of the structure of this triangle. Now you notice wave C is very violent, and it was the largest. I'm going to stop the chart for a second because I'm not seeing it. Okay. C wave is very violent. Typically in a triangle, whatever wave is the longest is going to be the most violent. So if the C wave is the longest, it's the most violent. So it's very logical for in a neutral triangle that the C wave was the most violent move and ended up terminating at a higher low to prepare for the D wave rally, because it would have been extremely weak going to 2008, 2009. Needs to sort of base out and build a foundation to set the stage for this really big D wave advance. I'll get into that in a minute on the shorter term charts. So here's the big picture. We've gone through a very long-term logical analysis of why the 5-wave move has to be here, why wave 4 can't finish here, why this is a corrective rally, that we're still in wave 4 since this high, and that we need one more large, probably 2 to 4 year bear market to finish off wave 4. And then when this is done, we'll start what should be the biggest, most amazing bull market of all time. And that's going to fit right into my super long-term analysis in the back of my book. If any of you have ever read that, that's 75-year forecast, where it talks about the Dow going to 100,000, which means the S&P would go to about 10,000. The SPY would go to about 1,000. So all these things are all fitting together very nicely on my super long-term chart, my 2.5-year chart, and then we're going to go down to the monthly chart. Before I do that, does anybody have any questions about what I've done so far and anything, any idea of why something isn't done some other way? If you want to just type a question, you can put it into the chat box, and Magellan will let me know, and we can get that. I'm going to continue to move on, and if we do get any corrections, then any questions, then I'll get to that in a minute. Okay, it says, what is the max time wave 4, wave 2 can take? The maximum time for wave 4, wave 2 in a standard 5-wave move, this does not involve terminals. And a standard 5-wave move is generally about 300% of the previous wave. So if wave 1 was 10 days, wave 2 shouldn't be more than about 30 days. Wave 3 was 20 days, wave 4 shouldn't be more than about 60 days. So that would be the outer limit. The minimum is 100%, maximum